Phase Zero bonus episode starts right now. This is the Wolverine review on the road to Deadpool and Wolverine. We've been doing all of the X-Men movies, Fox and X-Men movies, and now it's time for the Wolverine. I'm BD, joined today by Jenna Anderson.
Hey, everybody.
Hello. We got Aaron Perrine.
What's going on, BD?
Not much, man. Talking about Wolverine. We got Jamie Durack.
Good morning.
Top of the morning to you, yeah. All right. So this is, I don't know. I was just trying to give myself a shot of energy here. I got off a plane late last night. I was close to where they talk like that. I don't know. It's like I was close, but anyway, this is the Wolverine bonus episode. We're talking a full review. So what to expect from this episode? The first phase of the show will be the recap, some facts. The second phase of the show will be a little deep dive and discussion and Easter eggs. And the third phase of the show is where we're going to give it a 10 score and an official Phase Zero score, because we're going to average the four of us and determine if the Wolverine is good, bad, or somewhere in between. So X-Men Days of Future Past is next week's movie on Monday. We'll be reviewing X-Men Days of Future Past. 1 week after that will be the first Deadpool. We're flying through this. So this is exciting stuff.
I have a very important question, BD.
Oh boy.
Are we doing the road cut? Because some of us believe that is the one true cut of Days of Future Past.
Okay, so we're going to review the theatrical version, but we will discuss the road cut.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like, we will have to just watch the version, the theatrical version, and then during our deep dive, we will talk about the differences, what you get out of the road cut, how that makes you, like the movie more or less, maybe, but probably more. And then at the end, when we rate it out of 10, we will review the movie itself as it was in theaters. So that's
okay.
good question. Great question.
Yes. I made a vow to never watch the theatrical version again, but I'll do it for you.
Do it for the Phase Zero people.
Yes.
They actually probably are sitting there shouting, review the road cut. But no, you're going to get the theatrical cut and you're going to like it because it's great anyway. Honestly, the theatrical cut is great. Spoiler alert. But also the road cut somehow, also greater. But this is about the Wolverine, which has an alternate ending we'll talk about there too. Directed by James Mangold, written by Mark Baumbach and Scott Frank. This one grossed $414.8 million worldwide on a $120 million budget, making it the seventh highest grossing film in Fox's X-Men franchise. So those are some quick facts. Now it's time to talk about the movie itself, and you know the drill.
Is that me?
Yes.
Oh gosh. All right. Aaron, you got the stopwatch? All right, let's go. The Wolverine. We start in 1940s Japan. Logan's a POW. What's going on here? All of a sudden, an atomic bomb's about to go off. There's a soldier who he saves. He's like, come into my pit. And then the bomb goes off and he saves him. All right, cut to present day. Our man is not doing well. He's struggling. He just killed his girl Jean. He's having nightmares about her. She's in bed with him in these nightmares. He's like, I'm going to go beat up hunters who are killing bears because I'm having a bad time. But then girl Yukio comes in and she's like, hey, remember that guy you saved in Japan all those years ago? He's dying. Why don't you come to Japan, clean yourself up a little bit, and we can hang out. And he's like, oh, she's like, come on. I guess what I can do. I can see when people die. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll go to Japan. So he goes to Japan, and there he sees the old dude. And then there's like a lot of people are going on. He's got a blonde doctor named Dr. Green. She looks suspicious. He's got a granddaughter named Mariko. We know her. We just all watched the X-Men the animated series, and we know that all Mariko, because that's what Wolverine loves to yell. And then he's in there and he's like, why do you want me here? And he's like, I can change your power of not having to die. We can take that away from you. Don't you want to die? And Wolverine's like, maybe. I thought I was just coming to say goodbye to you. This feels like a trap. And then he's like, oh. And then the old man dies. And then Wolverine's like, oh, I'll go to the funeral. But at some point, he ingested some tea that seemed really sus. And now he's not healing. A lot is going down. They're at the funeral. And then he meets Mariko's dad. And this guy, he's sus too. He doesn't look like he's a really nice guy. And then all of a sudden, ninjas come out and they're trying to kidnap Mariko, and they're like, what's going on? And then Wolverine and Mariko go on a journey. They go on a bullet train. They go to a sex hotel. Lots of things are happening. And then eventually they're hiding out, and then he's sleeping, and she's like, "Who's Jean?" And he's like, "Oh, I can't tell you about this." And then they kiss a bit because he likes to get it down. And then, but then eventually Mariko does get kidnapped. Oh no, who's trying to kidnap her? And he goes back to old granddad's house, and he sees the dad, and he's like, "What are you doing? You trying to kill your daughter? That's not cool." And he's like, "She's inheriting my dad's stuff, but it should be me who's inheriting my dad's stuff." And then Wolverine's like, "I need my power back. I need the ability to heal." And Yukio's like, "No, I saw your death. You're gonna die with your heart in your hand." And he's like, "We're gonna try it out anyway." And he rips open his chest, and there's this metal spider guy, and he's like, "Crush, crush, crush," and he almost dies, but she was wrong. Wolverine survived the movie. Who could have seen it coming? And then he fights old dad, samurai style. It's sword versus claws. It's pretty cool. And then all that gets done, and he's like, "All right, time to go save Mariko." So they go, and he's on his way. And then, oh, by the way, Mariko has an ex-boyfriend who leads a bunch of cool guys with bows and arrows and stuff, and they're ninjas too. And he's like, "I'm going." And they're like, "No, we're going to shoot you down." Boom, boom, boom. And he gets all these arrows in his back. And it's like, "Oh, I'm going to make it anyway because he's Wolverine and he can do anything." And he gets there. And remember that Dr. Green lady? She has the ability to poison people. Oh, is she Viper? What? Look, now she's in this green outfit. That's a whole different aesthetic from the rest of the movie. And you're like, "Okay, blonde lady." And then he's like, "I'm here to save Mariko." And then she's like, "Look at this silver samurai. It's a giant bot and it's going to fight you." Blah, blah, blah. They're fighting. Who's inside? Grandpa? You didn't really die? You were faking your death? And now you're here to be younger because you were the villain the whole time? How could you do this to Mariko? And then they fight. But Wolverine wins. And Mariko's like, "You're not my grandfather. I buried my grandfather." Boom! Dead! Everything's dead. Everyone's good. They save Mariko. They save all of Japan. Everyone's happy. Viper, she's dead too. They say, "Peace out." And then Wolverine's like, "I'm leaving Mariko. I'm going with Yukio. And we're gonna do some business because she's my protector now." And they get on the plane, and they don't open a certain suitcase because that's not in this movie. And then he says, "Bye, we're flying away." Oh, what? There's a credit scene? He's in the airport, and all of a sudden, he can't move. And you know what that means? Magneto says, "I need your help." And he says, "Why would I help you?" And then he looks around and he knows, everyone's frozen. Only one person I know can do that. And who comes rolling in? It's Charles. And he says, "I got some powers of my own, buddy. I'm alive. Boom, we need your help. What's it going to be?" End of movie.
440.
Snap, Jane.
Excellent.
Wow.
Thank you.
I don't even know
Bravo
why I
very
watched
much.
the movie before before
Seriously.
we do this podcast. I don't know what I'm rewatching them for. We got it all right there. It's incredible. It's incredible. All right, we're gonna go around with reactions. Jamie, catch your breath. Jenna, as if the social embargo just lifted,
Yeah.
what did you think of the Wolverine this many years later?
I like a lot of this movie. I don't necessarily love it. I often actively forget that James Mangold directed this because I love Logan so much and it feels so wildly different from his work on this. But there is a lot in here that I do enjoy. I know there's a lot of criticism about the third act, which we will get into, but I think it's a good movie. It's not necessarily my favorite, but it's definitely not as bad as like Origins.
Aaron?
This trilogy has the weirdest consistency possibly of any Marvel trilogy ever made. Where the first movie is a completely different thing from the second movie. The second movie is completely different from the third movie in every single way. I think that James Mangold, thank you for making this so that you could make Logan and proving. Also, I think that I read some of this like the fifth highest grossing of these movies, of like the X-Men movies, which seems wild because you don't really see people talking about this online in the way you see some of the other entries. But absolutely a step up from Origins. I mean, a lot of Hugh Jackman just doing cool stuff against ninjas will get you a long way. I feel like we probably need more movies where it's just here's a cool guy doing stuff and just messing stuff up. Go watch Monkey Man. Yeah, enjoyed it.
It's the fifth highest grossing if you don't count the Deadpool movies. If you're talking only
Okay.
exclusively X-Men movies, it's fifth. If you count Deadpool's, it's seventh.
Okay.
I mean, I like this movie. I don't love it. I also forgot it was directed by James Mangold when I hit play today. And then I got about 10 minutes in and I was like, maybe subconsciously I remembered that. But I was like, this just feels like it has the bones of Logan. It feels like it has that it feels like they tried to have a tone of Logan, but didn't get to take it as far, basically. And then I just went and double checked on IMDb. And I was like, wait, yeah, no, this is indeed James Mangold. So clearly, Mangold knows what he's doing. He knows how to make good stuff visually, especially. He makes these gritty, cool, X movies with Hugh Jackman. But ultimately, I didn't feel like I had too deep of a connection to the story. I thought the relationship with um, Wolverine and his chaperone basically was interesting. And then I saw how they flipped that, and the Wolverine becomes the chaperone in Logan. But no, it was fine. It was good. The bullet train scene is one of the best. So, like in the whole franchise, I'd say. So it has that going for it too. Jamie, what do you think?
My go-to thing for this movie is that it's not as good as the great ones, but it's so much better than the bad ones. And I really like this movie a lot. I think it like really slips through the cracks. It's like it's kind of forgettable because it's not an extreme one way or the other. But I really like the whole Wolverine is a samurai thing. It helps that I live in a household of a huge Japanese cinema fan. We're a big Kurosawa household, and I really just like that whole the genre of it, and I like that it's just its own kind of little story. I think that this is what they were trying with Origins and that they failed miserably at, which is to make its just own little pocket movie that isn't necessarily that can stand on its own. And while it does have flaws for sure, I do really enjoy every time I revisit this one. It's like, oh yeah, this one exists. I'm happy to be watching it.
I have to agree with you. I do think putting Wolverine into Japanese culture was a really interesting element of this film that I really enjoyed. Yeah. So, all right. We all seem to have mostly enjoyed the movie, some more than others, but nobody's negative on it. So that's good. That'll make this a more fun show. Actually, no, it's when somebody hates it, it's a little bit more fun. Like, I don't know if y'all saw what happens when you ask Aaron about Blade, but like if we get a reaction like that, usually makes the makes the show a little spicier. But there's no spicy nugget today. It's the bonus episode review. So, all right, we come back, quick break. We're going to talk deep dive into the Wolverine, full discussion for the things we do have to talk about with this one. And then after that, we'll rate it out of 10. I'll give it an official Phase Zero score. So subscribe to the channel, leave a 5-star review. We'll see you in just a moment. Welcome back to Phase Zero's Road to Deadpool and Wolverine, the Wolverine review bonus episode. Welcome to the live show for the first time. Sean Clements having a good time in the chat. Welcome to the party, buddy. All right, this is the deep dive discussion, Easter egg breakdown, all that good stuff about the Wolverine. I don't feel like this one has as much meat on its bone to pick apart as some of the other movies we've already talked about and some of the movies we have coming up. But nevertheless, we're going to dive into it. I thought the opening scene really falls in line with a lot of good opening scenes for this X-Men saga. That Nagasaki bit was heavy, and it just showed Wolverine's humanity, I think, and it would really set the tone. And it started in a very peaceful, but then devastating moment versus the congestion of the city where a lot of the movie ends up taking place. But yeah, I thought that really set the tone for the film out of the gate. Enjoyed that.
We all are just quietly
Yeah, we're like,
agreeing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I always love when we utilize Logan just across all media of like utilizing the fact that he has been around for as long as he has, and I think this scene illustrates that so well and uses it in such a multifaceted and like poignant way. It's also so easy to see this and then be like, oh yeah, of course James Mangold was going to direct an Indiana Jones movie, because like that opening in particular really feels like a precursor to what he did on Dial of Destiny.
Still haven't watched that movie.
Oh,
I know. Gene? Oh, Famke Janssen comes back in this movie. So that
Oh,
was
I know
cool.
Jen has thoughts.
Jenna, what you thinking about that?
The dead girlfriend wife hidden under a white linen sheet trope always bothers me, and especially in this instance, I completely forgot that that was such an undercurrent of this entire movie. And then literally, like, I'm always happy to see her, but it just felt like such a weird. I get why Logan needed to go through that and needed to have that vision, but I was just like, man, this sucks. I hate that Jean was being utilized this way.
Logan, you
I
never
tr-
actually pulling, bro.
yeah, right. I totally
Like,
like have mixed feelings on that too, because like it is kind of annoying, but like I wouldn't trade her not being there. I just like she's back, yay! But
Yeah.
that's more about just like the connectivity to the other movies is why I appreciate it, because I love you X2 so much that I'm like, oh, remember we're in the same universe, but the woman in me is also like,
how many other characters have we ever seen that are down this bad as Wolverine is? The dude is down bad for Gene, and like he is. I don't know if he's ever, gonna get out of that.
This is a good
X
question.
I know. I'm
X-Men
trying to rack my
97.
brain.
Gambit right
Yeah.
now in X-Men
Yeah,
97, to
Gambit.
be honest. Gambit's about to go through it. My
I
Gambit.
feel like Peter in Far From Home, but then he actually like lands it, so it's not
Yeah.
as you know.
But Wolverine has been down bad for like 30 years now. Like he's just been watching from the sideline, like I love you, but I'll
This is
never
why
have.
I'm so sad we didn't get Lady Death with Thanos, because like he would have been down bad on screen in like an
Oh,
unparalleled, unprecedented kind of way. If we got that, it would have set a new high bar for that.
yeah.
Hugh
Thanos in
Jackman.
comics is the king of being down bad. He washed half the universe for in the sake of some girl's name.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then
and then what happens?
Oh my
Uh
God.
all right. So that this of course is set after the events of X3 when Logan had to kill Jean with the Phoenix when she had the Phoenix Force and all that. He's out drinking. He's hunting. I liked the scene where he puts the arrow in the guy's hand and he blames him for poisoning the bear, which then went crazy. And basically, Wolverine had to put it down because Wolverine kind of, we're putting this whole obvious sentiment that Wolverine can relate to the animals because he is kind of an animal. When he put that poison arrow in the guy's hand, it was like, if you don't use poison, then you shouldn't be worried, bub. I was like, that's good stuff. That's good. That's good filmmaking right there. James
It also
Mangold.
felt like a grounded way at the time for them to do the demon bear stuff, which like we'll get to once we get to New Mutants. But like because there was some sort of line that he says, like mentioning like the bear went demonic and killed blah blah blah, and it was like, oh, this feels like at the time the best they could do to get to that point in the comics.
I didn't even think about that. That would have been a cool way to spin out of this.
If
I
only.
back then, sometimes executives, sometimes people, producers, whatever, they just be trying to shove any and all comics stuff in there just because, just to do it, just to get it on screen and get it out there, which I believe we're going to talk about later with a certain shiny person. But I don't. It's so interesting that I didn't even think about that, Jen, until you brought it up, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess they just wanted to just get it in there, Weird.
This was also one of the what was this, second or third Fox X movie since the MCU launched.
Yeah.
And the MCU really, I think, is what really trained us to start looking at those Easter eggs with the Cap Shield and Iron Man 2 and all those all those other little post-credit scenes that shows it's connected. And then I think from 2012 on, the filmmakers realized we got to be really intentional with Easter eggs and references, because look at this. Entire websites like comicbook.com are spawning out of these lines in movies. So I think this one was one of those movies that's just like, well, it's like they just threw stuff in there. And still today, there'll be stuff thrown in there. Like there'll be the occasional little comic book creator name on a street sign or something. But I think that's if it's a line of dialogue that seems like it could really reference a storyline where we all go, oh, well, that's going to be next. But also, this was also before the age where everything was announced for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have been more of like, oh, well, maybe they will do that. Now it's like, well, how would they do that? So uh, I like the idea of Wolverine struggling with his mortality. I remember when I watched this movie for the first time 11 years ago, thinking like, wow, that would kind of suck, just outliving everyone all the time. Like, now would I accept that? I probably would be like, yeah, sure, I'll live forever. But I think that would come with a lot of emotional baggage, and you probably would not even know what emotions are after some time.
There's a reason why he's so down bad. It's like he's not good at processing his emotions. That becomes such a plot point of Logan that like he has no idea how to handle his grief, no idea how to handle like good emotions either. So yeah, I like that is the crux of this movie of like him kind of toying with that.
Yeah, I think it's good stuff.
It's
There is
definitely
a
the right lead in. Like James Mangold, I'm really glad that he got to do both of these, and I will forever wish he got to do all three of them.
I think Mangold really did just want to play with killing Wolverine the whole time. I really think that was his goal. And I mean, there's the reference to, she says to him that she saw his death and he's laying on his back covered in blood. And it's like, well, did you plan that? Is that one that you did intentionally? Now we haven't watched that movie yet, so maybe that does come true.
We'll talk about that when we get to that movie, but like that is my favorite part of this movie in a roundabout way is the fact that Logan canonizes it in a completely unexpected way. Like every time I think about that line, I get goosebumps because of the way that he actually made it work.
But on that note, that same token, the credit scene, I'm skipping to the end real quick. The credit scene, he's got bone claws because the adamantium has been removed from his body in this film. The next time we see him, seemingly picking up from that credit scene, the man's got adamantium claws again. Hypothetically, if we had seen the next movie, which we will talk about a week from today, X-Men Days of Future Past, it just kind of happened. So the continuity in these franchises are not the best, but James Mangold's continuity within his own movie, 2 movies, pretty good. We'll give him that. What else we got? Viper is in the movie. She once blackmailed Logan into marriage in the comics because she wanted to get control of Madripoor, which we have now seen in the MCU. Jenna's got more to say about Viper.
So, because one of the things Chris and I were the most curious about, because she's technically Madam Hydra, and we were like, how did the rights for this character work? Because they were presumably over at Marvel Studios at that point. And based on what I could see online, they legally couldn't call her Madam Hydra, and otherwise they were totally fine including her in the movie, which was kind of wild for the time, especially when that was the era when it's like, oh, the Guardians movies are almost here, and we're debating about like where like the Watchers and Silver Surfer and all of these characters are. Like that stuff was on the horizon, and we're already having these weird kind of sort of crossovers. I know Jamie has thoughts about Madam Hydra.
Well, thank God they didn't get Madam Hydra because Madam Hydra is one of the best parts of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it all worked out for old Jamie. I cosplayed as Madam Hydra specifically from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at a con once. But my friend was Havoc, so everyone just thought I was Polaris because I was in green. It was actually really sad.
Polaris is awesome too. Like that's at least a good character to get mistaken for.
Yeah.
I have to say, after like rewatching this movie, after more recently having seen Elektra, Viper was almost as if you plucked a villain out of the Elektra movie. Like that was very much the energy he had, which I appreciated, but I also recognize how at the time it was kind of a little anachronistic and maybe not as great.
Well, at one point she literally kissed somebody and they died. So that is exactly what happens in Elektra. And I had the same thought. I was like, this reminds me of Elektra. I love being reminded of Elektra though, so it's okay. This all takes us to that bullet train fight on the top of the train, which I thought was genius. I remember this was in every piece of marketing for this movie, this sequence, and just Wolverine outsmarting people, not only outfighting them, but outsmarting them and using the environment to his advantage. Just incredibly well shot. I feel like James Mangold, in a lot of the action scenes in this, clearly showed how he wanted to make an R-rated movie, which he does later. But in this one, you could tell he had ideas. He had ideas for that.
I was just waiting for you to say the words bullet train at least once or twice in this episode.
Underrated
Since you
film.
love the other bullet train movie. But yeah, I think this sequence is great. It like for me, this movie, the defining sequences are that, and even like some of the smaller sequences where he's just talking to people. It's like that is the most that Hugh Jackman I feel like he really gets to shine personality wise as Logan. But yeah, the bullet train scene is awesome.
When was Casino Royale?
Years before this.
Years before. Okay.
2009, I think.
Yeah.
I jokingly leaned over to Ariel and was like, "What if the producers behind this had watched that instead of The Last Samurai, and they had done that tack on Logan as like freewheeling around Japan as opposed to like it making it like that?" It was very interesting. This is like a very impressive set piece. It was in all the marketing for a reason. It still looks very good. And I just laughed. There's a gulf between this and the movie that came before it. Like, can you imagine how whacked out this would have looked if it was in the first Origins movie? Like, fam. So, good job, James Mangold. Good job, Hugh. Way to go, guys.
Bad. It would have been really bad.
Yeah. Rough,
Imagine
man.
if it was Tom Cruise playing Wolverine. People would have died.
He's short enough.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, we just started a new rumor for Deadpool and Wolverine. New variant. New
We
variant.
just got done with the Iron Man rumors surrounding him.
I'm still not over those. I still think maybe one day.
Oh boy.
I did not ask Henry Cavill about Marvel, by the way,
Oh,
but I just didn't want to get blacklisted from the next one.
That's fair.
Yeah.
sometimes you got to make that choice.
Yeah.
Should I get invited to the next junket, or should I ask this one-time cheap pop question that he's probably not going to answer anyway? Hopefully get invited to the next junket. Veterinarian is the one who ends up patching up Wolverine. Ha ha, he's an animal. This guy fixes animals. Oh ho ho. Well done, sir.
It's also such a trope for like any underground if someone's hurt, they end up at a vet's office.
Yeah.
Let's cut to the end here. Silver Samurai essentially becomes Ironmonger. Come on, there's some parallels there, no?
I mean, I feel like they probably approached him in a way because of Iron Man being successful. Of like they would have maybe rendered him in a different way if this movie had come out in a vacuum outside of that.
It was weird to see such a computerized character, because for the most part, the X-Men movies have felt kind of like they have the texture of realism and practicality to them, with exceptions. I mean, think about Nightcrawler. They made that scene look so good years before this. And I thought Silver Samurai, the big metal version of Silver Samurai in his Iron Man form, was quite fake. But that's all right. It's all right. Anything about the finale, the ending, the fight you guys want to talk about? Because it's pretty straightforward in my opinion. The twist, the grandfather's still alive. Whoa!
Every time I watch this, I forget how late that reveal comes. Because like this time I'm like, when is evil grandpa showing up? And then it's like the end. And I think that's kind of fun. I don't really have strong feelings about it either way.
Yeah.
Really puts Wolverine through it though. This man's like, I saved you. Now, like, here we are. Just let me show my humanity, bro. No, the world says no. You're an animal. Go to the vet. Credit scene. Charles and Eric are back. Jamie talked about this. I talked about the Bone Claw issue. Oh my gosh, what's next? Well, Days of Future Past is next. This was particularly cool to have them back because this was right after First Class, where those two got recast.
Yeah.
So it's very cool to have them back, and at the time be like, oh, and at the time, I don't know, I don't remember the internet culture of 2013. I know I was like on Twitter and all kinds of talking about movies and all that stuff, and reading websites like IGN Comic Book was just starting up and all that stuff. But I don't remember what was known about Days of Future Past at the time. I don't remember if I watched this in 2013 and I was like, oh, the next movie is X-Men Days of Future Past, or if I didn't know that and I learned it later from this credit scene. Do you guys remember that?
I definitely didn't know, because I remember being like, how's Charles alive? What's happening? Are they doing more of these movies? I was confused for sure, but also excited because I was not as into, I didn't work here. I read Entertainment Weekly when it used to exist as a magazine, but I don't think that I was fully aware of what was happening, but I knew in my heart that it was something to be excited about.
Yeah,
See, I was on Tumblr in that era, so like I was at least aware. I think at that point, like Days of Future Past had to be at least announced or like being worked on or something. So it's like I at least knew that was coming. I just didn't know how we were going to get there at all. So that's why the post-credit scene is like such a nice surprise.
I remember at the local comic store, all of us arguing and being like, well, what the heck was the reboot for then? If you just go bring back Charles and Eric, what the heck would we do? And I liked First Class. I was like, you do this dope, cool period picture thing. And then you're just like, we're bringing back the old people. And time is a flat circle because don't look now. You know, it's very weird how that keeps happening.
Yeah.
Maybe for the next one, they'll put them all in the same movie.
You know, imagine that's what I keep saying when I say that things did not work the way they do now. That would have been the first thing everybody thought in 2024. Back then, inconceivable. You're like, what? They're not going to do that.
This really was like right around the time when theories and YouTube videos about this stuff and websites and like, you know, so much of the conversation and the deep diving for scoops and things like that was starting to happen. 2013. This was a year after Avengers. Iron Man 3 dropped this year. This is before Guardians of the Galaxy. It's before, you know, it's The Walking Dead is like reaching its peak right now. Game of Thrones is going strong when this comes out. And that internet fandom discussion is really evolving. It's still at this like really kind of reaching what it became, I'd say where it peaked in from 2018 to 2021 or 2022. And right now it's kind of lulling again. And that's what's going to happen. It's going to ebb and flow these periods of people's interest in mainstream media. But this was, I feel like, the first beginning of the big boom of the interest in that kind of stuff.
Totally.
You can tell it's a different time because I forgot there was a post-credit scene and I didn't watch it. And then today I woke up and I was like, wait a second, my recap in my brain needs a post-credit. And then I was like, yeah, there is one. And I went and watched it this morning, which just goes to show like now you would never not I would never turn off the TV in a movie made like after this. But I just like forgot in this case.
Yeah. There's also an alternate credit scene, which is where we got the classic Wolverine suit, the old school Wolverine suit, the brown and yellow one, is shown to Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, never actually worn, and as James Mangold revealed during a quarantine watch party of Logan, that they never even considered putting it on him for that movie. So it was just for S's and G's.
They should have kept it because it's a really cool moment and it doesn't it's just like a cool I think it's a fun nod to fans of like, yay, look at this. It's just like an Easter egg that like I feel like there's no reason for them to not have put that in the movie. I think it's a weird choice that they cut it.
Yeah.
But we're getting some suit business soon, so
maybe at some point they thought in Days of Future Past or some next version of the movie he would wear it, and then they decided not to. So that scene existed. Like this was probably filmed in 2012, and then quickly they started on Days of Future Past, and they had thought about putting them all in their costumes, and maybe they just decided not to for that movie, so they took that scene out of the theatrical release. But at that point, why even let the world know that scene exists? You could have kept that out. But it was cool that it existed for a moment, and we all were like, maybe one day. Psych. Not that one, but the blue and yellow one soon enough. So yeah, that's all my take. That's all the stuff. I mean, this movie is much more straightforward, I think. Silver Samurai is kind of interesting. Is an interesting, a few changes from the comics and stuff. Viper, I didn't know the Madam Hydra bit being owned by Marvel Studios, but it's like Wanda and Quicksilver. Like you can use parts of them, but you can't call them mutants if they're in Avengers. Things like that. So the movie rights for some of these characters are very interesting, and I always find those conversations interesting too. It's a fine movie. Everybody seemed to like it. It's a varying levels. It's good. I wonder what the reaction would be if it came out today.
Oh, I feel like it would almost be better and worse. I don't know. It would have its defenders immediately on the internet, but there would be some people who would take the fact that it's just okay. It's just self-contained. It is what it is as like an affront to their cinematic universe, and they would have been very mad at it, I feel like.
Yeah. Continuity is a big thing now. Even if you'd want to act like it's
But let's keep it funky. There's no way that an executive would be like, we're gonna have the weird bone claws from the first one in the next one. Like we need to sell action figures, baby. Like we're not doing that. We'll sell it as a variant action figure later, for sure. But the first, no. Yeah, so like James Mangold goes to call like action on the first take, and then you just feel a hand on his shoulder, like no.
I mean, you got the wrong claws on. Hey, bro. Here.
You got the wrong claws on.
Management called. They need you to spot the difference. Corporate Call. Corporate Call. All right. Well, that is our Wolverine deep dive. When we come back, we're going to give it a 10 score real quick for all of us and give it the official Phase Zero out of 10 ranking because 10 scores are accurate and relevant and the best thing everyone in the world really, really wants to hear and deliver, right? Isn't that, everybody says 10 scores are everybody?
Jamie's
says-
just ignoring you.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
All right.
I
Subscribe to the channel.
sorry.
We will see you in a moment. Welcome back to Phase Zero's Road to Deadpool and Wolverine, the Wolverine review, and it is officially review time. Jenna, the Wolverine out of 10. What do you give it?
I'm gonna give it a 7. Like I said at the start of the show, I don't vehemently dislike it, but I also don't love it as much as some other movies in this franchise. I think there's a lot of it that is really good and really admirable, but there's a lot that is very forgettable. So I think a 7 is safely where I'm at.
Jamie, terrific.
When I watched it last year, I logged it as a 4, and this week though I logged it as a 3.5, and I think it comes down to what Jenna just said, kind of not all being memorable, and that averages out to a 7.5.
All right, 7.5. Aaron Perrine.
I got this one around like 7.2. I'm surprised on a rewatch how much more I enjoyed this than some other entries, and just as Jenna pointed out, it's like its own thing. You ain't got to worry about all this other stuff. It's just like, hey man, what if we just dropped him over somewhere else and had him do weird Wolverine stuff? And it's enjoyable. Also, I heard another culture story about Wolverine. This has happened a lot, hasn't it? Every culture will just tell him about a Wolverine.
I am at a 7 out of 10 on this one. So my official score is 7 out of 10. I think that this is a good X-Men movie. It's much better than Origins. It's got a couple of very memorable sequences and an interesting exploration of Wolverine's humanity, but overall doesn't really resonate or have a ton of rewatchability if in the long run. So that is 7 plus 7.5 plus 7.2 plus 7 divided by 4, the official Phase Zero score. It's a 7.2 out of 10. 7.175
That's
gets
respectable.
rounded up.
Yeah.
7.2 out of 10 for Wolverine, for the Wolverine. Not bad. We'll have to make it. I forget what we've given all the other movies, to be completely honest. We got to write it down, and then at the end, we'll make a graphic with our official average scores. But 7.2 out of 10 for the Wolverine. I got to say, it feels right. It just feels right.
It does.
It just feels like where it
Wait,
should
that's the
be.
closest I think we've ever been. Like,
Yeah,
in terms of the
honestly.
four of
Absolutely.
us.
Once we get to Logan, I feel like it's going to get even closer, but like for now, that is impressive.
We'll see.
And I think that might be one of the problems with this movie is that it just feels kind of safe enough of a movie. Like it's just there. It's good. It's fine. It doesn't take too many chances that really pay off or miss. So therefore we all are kind of like, well, it's kind of forgettable, but it's good in a sense, right? Maybe it's just me. But yeah, all right, everybody in the comment section, feel free to drop your 10 score. Send them to us on social media. 7.2 out of 10 is the official Phase Zero score for the Wolverine. Next week is X-Men Days of Future Past. The week after that, I won't be there the week after that, but the crew will be reviewing the first Deadpool movie. So find those movies wherever you need to watch them and join us for the recaps, reviews, and all that good stuff. Aaron, any last words for today's show?
It's at someone like Hornet. You can find me there on Twitter. It's nice. I feel like I'll be looking back on this fondly in some weeks to just not have a real big opinion before or after. Man.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Deadpool Wolverine, please, I beg you to be good. We need it. We need it. Jenna.
It's at Hey It's Jenna Lynn on social media. As always, go read some comics. If you found yourself really liking this movie, or if you just think it's okay like we do and you want to read something beyond that, it is very heavily inspired by the Chris Claremont Wolverine series, so go check that out.
Jamie Jurak.
Follow me on Letterboxd at Jamie Jirak. I see some people learning that Days of Future Past is not on Disney Plus. That is right, but I do believe it is on Max. So
Okay.
if you're trying to find it, I don't know why. That's like the weird thing sometimes with these movies, but I do believe it is there for your viewing pleasure. Please stop taking your phones out during movies. Stop talking during movies. I saw Immaculate last night, and these girls next to me kept talking, and I just need you guys to stop cutting that out. I need you to cut that out. Because let me tell you, it's expensive to go to the movies. Even if you have A-list.
Even if you are A-list, don't take your phone out. Mark Ruffalo. All right. That's our show. Leave a 5-star review on the podcast platforms. We would really appreciate it. We appreciate everybody who comes and joins us for all the chaos and the reviews and all the other shenanigans we're doing here on Phase Zero. On Wednesday, we're back for our regularly scheduled program. I'm going to miss this Wednesday as well. Oh my gosh, I'm going to be up at Pixar, which is cool, but I will be not on Phase Zero. So Aaron, Jamie, and Jenna will have plenty of news to talk with you guys about on Wednesday. On Monday, X-Men Days of Future Past. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss it. Play our show for your mom. Play it for your dog. Have a wonderful Monday or whatever day you're listening to this. I hope it's fantastic. See you soon.